Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar DeeEight. Thanks for stopping by. I am your tsundere streamer who doesn't stream. I also don't speak Japanese. One day I'll learn that. I am wanting to learn German first, then eventually Japanese, French, and Hebrew. Heck, Greek and Latin if I ran out of stuff, but honestly, I keep procrastinating the German, so. Well, time to start the answer arcs. Welcome to Rockanjima. Begin a new game. Suspended games can also be resumed here. Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. Good morning. Please enjoy this new game by a new game master at your leisure. You guys say leisure or leisure? I say leisure. However, you guys say either or either. However, the game has already reached a climax. The culprit has been cornered, and there's nothing left to do but await the final checkmate. But, for that very reason, there must be something for you to spot. Looking down on it from afar, the difficulty is fairly easy. What could possibly deceive you after all this time? This story is very obviously fictional and fantastic in nature. Any resemblance to... we'll never know the rest of what that said. You idiot. By the way, at the very end of the last episode, I looked up a couple spoilers. Oh, all this is already readily available here. Neat. He is displeased that Lambda Delta has taken over as a game master, so he does not participate as a player. There will be differences. In the place of Beatu stepped down from the position of Game Master in the 4th game. Beato's piece, who speaks on behalf of the Illusion of the Witch. She claims that all the crimes of Rockanjima were caused by the Illusion of the Witch. In the 5th game, she clashes with Bernkenstel, who denies this illusion. Because she herself is nothing more than a piece, and the higher plane version of her has stepped down as Game Master, she isn't in a position where she can know the truth of the 5th game. This puts her in a different position than the one she held in the games before. Basically, a position of vulnerability. Why are you being a jerk? Burn Castell, you were supposed to be a good person. Why are you a jerk now? Also known as the witch who knows miracles that don't occur. Why have you become so pessimistic? The 5th game, she participates as a player in the opposition to Beato. However, from the very beginning, her aim has been to deny the illusional witch. Her only goal is to crush Beato in her world as a way to stave off boredom. Though she does deny the illusional witch, she is no ally of battlers. Again, I would like to know how Keiichi would feel about all this. Or the rest of the cast of Higurashi. Again, you gotta say Hinamizawa or Hinamizawa. Also, I still say Kairi is very pretty, and she looks like Ivy from Soul Calibur 2 for the PS2. She also looks like Kaoru Nagisa, Kaoru from Evangelion. Also, she looks like Sare, the VTuber. Anyway, enough getting distracted by ogling big titties. Isn't it obvious? It'll be fun to kill her and see your face twist in pain. Why else? Yeah. Look, don't turn your eyes away. Look at it. Look. It's magic. It's furniture. No matter how much you try to deny me a magic. Look. Yeah. Sorry, Battler. It was pretty fun. Sure, I just did what teacher told me, but look how great it turned out. Apparently, if you start out all hostile and needlessly brutal, and then turn incompetent and soft at just the right moment, you can spark a huge bump on your affection meter, right? Okay, this is a flashback to episode 3, this scene. So are we seeing small snippets of each of the episodes before this one? So we technically haven't actually officially started episode 5 yet. We're getting a recap of the previous episodes, albeit a very lacking in detail. Then again, if we had even a concise summary of everything that happened, it would take a while. We'd be here for half an hour at least. That lonely tone was the desolate sound of the wind blowing by. The glittering rose petals on these bushes were all golden. Alright, Canon takes care of the flowers, right? From the episode 1. The cloud of gold butterflies that had once danced through this golden rose garden like fluttering rose petals was no longer anywhere to be seen. The master of the Golden Land is the Golden Witch, Beatrice. She might be called inhumane and cruel, arrogant and outrageous. Also, given the fact that certain things I looked up in the previous episode, one, given certain conversations that happened in the very first episode, also just certain things seem a little odd, but also there's certain discussions that occurred between Beatrice and the person who actually is Beatrice, which honestly sounds more like somebody being really mean to themselves. I'm trying not to give spoilers, like I said. I at least titled the previous video spoilers and teasers, because gave a little bit of teaser what to expect, but also I gave some spoilers in terms of looking up answers to certain questions I had that were not resolved in the last one. That being said, I still have apparently so much that I can be surprised by in this game, so, well, we'll get to it. Like I said, I'm going to finish this series before GTA 6 comes out. So I don't know how much time that gives me. When do you guys think GTA 6 is going to get released? She might be called inhumane and cruel, arrogant and outrageous, or perhaps naive and simple. That laugh of hers, which lost its grace more and more the longer it continued, could no longer be heard. I'm just saying, given everything we learned, including those spoilers that I looked up, and the teasers that I looked up at the very end of the previous video, every conversation that happened between the characters in this game takes on a whole different meaning. That laugh of hers, which lost its grace more and more the longer it continued, could no longer be heard. The Golden Witch Beatrice sat like a doll resting in a deck chair adorned as beautifully as the golden rose garden itself. She wasn't relaxing there. Her eyes were empty. She didn't respond to any questions. Even so, she was not permitted to sleep. Beatrice sat like a doll. Her hair was down, and Virgilia was carefully tending to it with a comb. The usual Beato would surely have spent this time complaining about this and that regarding her hairstyle. However, she made no response, showed no reaction, so it really only looked like Virgilia was combing the golden hair of a large doll. There was a table alongside them. On it sat a chessboard along with a jumble of black and white pieces locked in a closely fought battle. However, this setup looked somehow different from normal chess. Maybe the game was similar, though not identical. And on the other side, sitting back in his chair as he contemplated his next move, was a young man. No, perhaps it wasn't his next move he contemplated. Every once in a while he would change positions of the pieces, reconsidering the situation after every change. Maybe he was reconstructing previous games, trying to discover the thought process behind the moves that had been made. In the past, Kinzo, the Ushiromiya family head, once said that learning chessboard arrangements was like taking a journey through the thoughts of the old masters. Ushiromiya Battler was on a journey, a search for the thought process that had led the Golden Witch to create this arrangement and make these moves. Battler took a black piece that should have been moved forward and returned it to its original place, sighing deeply. Battler's pieces were white. However, on this chessboard, the black encampment was on Battler's side. He was reconstructing that arrangement, trying to play Beato's role. The more I do this, the less I understand your moves. Even Battler didn't expect that Beato would respond to that statement, or rather he was pretending to talk to himself, thinking there might still be some chance of her responding. Beato's eyes reflected nothing. And her mouth told nothing. After begging him to kill her, the Golden Witch had become a corpse that had given up on life. She wasn't sleeping. She couldn't step down from this game and was therefore forbidden sleep. So those words must have reached her ears. However, they probably hadn't reached her heart. The Golden Witch would not sneer at Battler's moves, nor would she praise them or belittle them. By now, Beatrice was nothing more than a living doll. Even so, she would glance at him every once in a while. It would be an empty glance, but a glance nonetheless. Sometimes she would seem to make some sort of gesture. This is a bit reminiscent of way Battler was before Angie managed to reawaken him. Catatonia. Sometimes she would seem to make some sort of gesture or even move her lips. However, her movements never managed to communicate anything to Battler. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. Beato? Battler-kun is talking to you. Say something. Giggle or guffaw or something. Even use that shrill laugh of yours if you want. Can you believe it? That shrill laugh of Beato's will never be heard again. However, even if she couldn't answer, his voice surely reached her. That was what Battler believed as he said these words, so he said it again. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. So, you don't understand what this child is thinking? Virgilia answered in her disciple's stead. Up to this point, she had done her best to avoid speaking for Beato. After all, there was a chance that Beato would respond in some way, and Virgilia didn't want to be the one to steal that chance, so Battler was going to have to bear with this silence. Until Beato herself answered, Virgilia could no longer bear to watch Battler like this. Besides, Battler also wanted to hear what Virgilia had to say. He believed that conversation would reach Beato's heart. Yep, I don't have a clue. The more I try standing in Beato's shoes and moving the pieces like this, the less I understand. A serial murder following an epitaph. With that as a victory condition, I tried reconstructing the games from the witch's side, but I never end up making the moves Beato did. In those games, I could find several incomprehensible moves that clearly worked against that victory condition. I don't get it at all. This journey through her thoughts is just too rugged. Even so, you won't give up, will you? I won't. I promised. Kill me. Let me die. I promised to let her die peacefully, and I'm the only one who can do it. Beato's right ankle was bound with a heavy, cold steel shackle. It wasn't tied to anything, so it didn't restrict her movement. However, it symbolized restriction. It was a visualization of the bonds that prevented her from leaving the game until she either won or lost, and the shackle was probably hurting her. The mercilessly cold shackle tormented her over and over and over inside her waking dream. Gah. So, there was never any sign of relief in her empty expression. Her eyelids would sometimes tremble like she was having a nightmare, and every once in a while she would let out a pained gasp. Unless I win, Beato will never be released from the curse that prevents her from sleeping peacefully. Are you sure you want to be doing this? It seems that the 5th game has already started. Not interested. Why should I take part in any game unless Beato is my opponent? If that's the only alternative, then it's a much better use of my time to reconstruct previous games while taking a journey in search of Beato's thought process. I'll be the next game master. Any objections? You've got none, right? I've got nothing but objections. Beato conceded the fight and is unconscious. Isn't this a loss by default and game over for her? I'll admit a lot's happened to Beato, and she's basically been KO'd for now. But that doesn't mean she's lost the will to fight. That's why I'm acting as her assistant. Get it? Beato was lying down on a deck chair, almost as though she was sleeping. However, she wasn't sleeping, and she wasn't awake either. She was nothing more than a living doll that had given up on victory, who had asked Battler to perform her last rites, and who had surrendered everything. Of course, if everyone just sat around in the next game, the 5th game would never be made ready. So Lambda Delta had succeeded. Beato was the next game master to announce that she'd prepare the next game. Quit messing around. This is a game between me and Beato. I don't know who you two are, but I'm not going to let you carry on without us. No one asked for your opinion. What'll you do, Burn? Accept my challenge or not? Sure. Go ahead and inherit her role. The hell, quit messing around. I don't know who you people are, but I'm not going to let you ignore Beato and me and just carry on by yourselves. Hey, take it easy. Okay, sure. A new player means you'll face new kinds of moves. I'm sure you'll see a lot of stuff that confuses you, but even that might lead to some big hints, right? Who cares? Quit saying whatever you want and deciding everything on your own. Beato's game has repeated 4 times, and you still don't understand anything, right? In that case, I expect that swapping out opponents might lead to some huge hints. That's none of your business. This is our game. Beato prepared it, and she designated me to be her opponent. I don't know what hole you two crept out of, but I don't want you screwing things up. In that case, wake Beato up and make her get the next game ready. Kind of being a jerk, Burn. Frederica, be nice to people. Can you? But Beato won't be getting up for a while. Anyway, we don't even need to have another game. The 4 games she's already laid out are more than enough. And even if we do have some 5th game, there's no reason it shouldn't just be a puzzle Beato lays out and I take on. There's absolutely no reason for you two to butt in. Battler couldn't hide his irritation at the 2 witches called Lambda Delta and Berncastel, who had shown up well after the game's start, and who were now trying to take charge on their own. It looked like these witches were of an even higher rank than Beato, so high in fact that even Beato's teacher Virgilia couldn't even come close. Battler had the feeling he had seen these 2 several times before. However, this was the first time he had known their names and spoken to them directly. You can't get the next game ready without waking Beato. That's why I'll prepare the next game. We aren't so patient that we're willing to wait forever for Beato to regain consciousness. Right, Bern? I don't like boredom. It really ticks me off. We really don't give a damn whether you're bored or not. Come on now. Leave everything to this perfect Lambda Delta Sama, okay? I'll take over as the game master. Don't worry. I won't play with too much absolute perfection. Just like Beato, I'll set up plenty of incomprehensible fakes, clues, and bonus hints. I'll make this game a huge hint that'll help you understand Beato's world even better, okay? Letting my voiceless emotions explode, I slammed the table hard. The 2 witches didn't flinch at all. One grinned. The other looked indifferent, as though nothing had happened. The 2 of them just stared at me silently, as though they were reproaching me. What's this? Not satisfied? Are you saying you'll step down from my 5th game? Isn't that a loss by default? Do you guys default or default? Battler won't step down. Of course he'll participate in the 5th game. Don't just decide that yourself. I'm not going to play along with you 2. I don't give a shit. Then it really is a loss by default, right? The witch side wins this game. Is it really okay to end this with the humans surrendering? If you step down, the game will end with your loss by default. Get it? If you want to guarantee that your lonely sister always meets with miserable circumstances in an endless number of worlds, that option is indeed open to you. When Berncastel mentioned Angie, Battler's expression changed instantly. You bastard. Don't you dare talk about Angie so lightly. Because you have an ally in me, Berncastel, the Witch of Miracles, there exists the possibility of a miracle in which Angie's family comes home to her. Well, if you do throw that chance away and guarantee that Angie's endless futures all end in sorrow, that might be pretty interesting too. I vaguely understood what she was saying. Until I win in Beato's game, I'll remain trapped in this bizarre world, and if I abandon that victory, then most certainly my parents and I will never return to Angie. For Angie's sake, even though I know that the witches are toying with me, I must keep on fighting. Damn it. What's wrong? You look unsatisfied. Have you already forgotten how angry you were when your sister was turned into mincemeat? You know, that spectacle where she was torn to bits, ripped to pieces by countless red-hot pliers. You'd better watch more closely next time, right? Berncastel pointed the palm of her right hand upwards. As she did, a pale light gathered there, and some kind of blue, glowing crystal appeared. Are you going to show us a crystal ball showing us what it actually looked like when Angie was torn to shreds? That's... Weren't you... Weren't you criticizing them for... Weren't you criticizing Lambda Delta and Berncastel? I mean, weren't you criticizing Lambda Delta and Beatrice for being too descriptive of Angie's? You know, you could have just said she passed away or something. And now we're hearing you actually showing it to him. A scene was reflected on a sharp surface, but it wasn't the scene that surrounded them now. If you looked deep into that crystal, that fragment, then you would probably learn that what was reflected on there. If you stared at it, then you'd surely see the end Angie finally reached, after waiting 12 years and giving up on everything for the sake of her beloved brother. You guys say beloved or beloved? The scene of her death throes, as her entire body was torn to bits while she still lived. Damn you. Without thinking, he grabbed at her collar, but as soon as he touched that which made up her form, it disappeared like foam on the waves. Then, as naturally as though she had been there from the beginning, Bern Castell was leaning against a distant wall. If you step down from the game, why are you happy about being mean? This will become not just a fragment, but a definite reality. I won't be the one to create that future. You'll do it yourself. So, decide, okay? Figure out what you want to do with your beloved little sister's future. Battler's fist shook with anger. But even if he swung them down, he wouldn't be able to hit Bern Castell. This witch was like a phantom, or a cat who wouldn't even let someone pet her if she didn't wish for it. And she was telling the truth. For Angie's sake, I can't step down from this fight, even if these unpleasant witches hijack the game board. Heh. That's just like you, Bern. You're even heartless when you threaten people. That's how it is, Battler. You aren't allowed to step down from the game board. You and Beato are nothing more than pieces on the board that exist to distract us from our boredom. Even your incomprehensible anger and irritation make for a wonderful treat to satisfy us. Why does this make me think of the scene where, like, Guts was from Berserk was fighting Slan? You know, the God Hand member? Well, what you're doing now only makes for a cheap snack, though. Like those curry-flavored potato wafers that sell for 30 yen a pair. Giggle, giggle, bitch noises. I wonder how the Rika Furude that lived on... I mean, until she got Izakai'd, I guess, but... by the truck. Heck. I wonder how the great guardian spirit of Hinamizawa would feel about this. Guys are jerks. I want to stretch a bit. Ow, my back. I mean, to be fair, Bern Castell did kind of go through a lot of time loop trauma things. But at the same time, fuck. Yeah, you damn witches. You damn bitches. Giggle. Fight for Angie's sake, okay? And for Beatos too, right? In a way that was admonishing, or perhaps babying, like the headache you get after eating something too sweet. Bern Castell tormented Battler and smiled. By now, the host of this tea party, Beato, was absent. The guest witches were already making themselves at home. What'll you do, Ushiromiya Battler? Will you surrender to fate? Just step down. You've had enough of being toyed with as a witch's piece, right? It sure is tough being one of Byrne's pieces. I'm sure she'll use you and throw you away just like she did with Angie. I'm not giving you the option of stepping down. Keep fighting for the sake of your sister's future. I'm your ally. I mean, you can be nicer about it. Until you win, I'll support you so you can reach that future. For all eternity until I get bored. You know, I'd feel better about you saying you'd help me if you weren't, laughing about that. Guess seem kind of mean. Can't let her provocation and cajolery rile me up. These witches know I get mad easily, and they're trying to take advantage of that. Battler withstood it all and finally relaxed his clenched fist. If you want to start this 5th game of yours, go ahead and do it. Do whatever you want. Yes, I will do whatever I want. Hey, where are you going? Even though Battler acknowledged this 5th game, he turned his back on them. Much to Lambda Delta's surprise. If you're going to be Beato's substitute, then I'm sure that Byrne Castell witch over there can stand in for me if she wants. Not a bad idea. Better than a loss by default. What the heck? Are you gonna just ignore this episode 5 that I put so much effort into making? Rude, rude. Battler says he's gonna take a break for a while. Until he comes back, I'll be a substitute. How's that sound, Battler? Honestly, you're only willing to do this because it sounds fun to you. You'll have me step back in once you're bored of it. You do that. What's wrong, Lambda? So, you'll refuse to play if it's against me instead of that fool Battler? Of course not. I'm glad I get to play with you, Byrne. Come on, let's play, let's play. Let's play together in Lambda Delta's Sama's Super Hyper and Cute Episode 5. This technically is a world Beato created. You aren't going to ruin the atmosphere of the story, are you? Don't worry about that. I'm really good at reading between the lines for that sort of stuff. I made sure to use a Beato-ish atmosphere to make a tale that's even more interesting. Battler, make sure you come back as soon as your break's over, okay? It'd be a shame to miss this. I've set up plenty of bonus hints that'll get you closer to Beato's secrets. Or at least that's what it would look like when it's actually filled with misdirection. That makes stuff more and more confusing. Wait, hey Battler, why aren't you listening when a witch is talking? Without answering, Battler disappeared into the darkness. After shrugging and cackling, the witches immediately started playing with the game board they had stolen from Beato. Can those witches really understand Beato's game? Since they're using the same game board, they cannot do anything that this child cannot do. However, they can do things that this child wouldn't do. What do you mean, things she wouldn't do? The materials of chess exist so that you can play chess. Well, until next time, thanks for joining me, and I hope everyone out there has all the hugs and head pats you could ever want. Take care, everyone, and drink plenty of water and sleep well. Bye.